Hello. I want to give you a little bit of an update on our snow report since we talked about it yesterday, and there's all this hype about it all this week. Fortunately for me, we did not get what we thought we were going to get here. Thank goodness. I know there's a lot of disappointed little kids and big kids and so on and so forth, but that's okay. They got quite a bit more to the west of us and a whole lot more to the south of us, but we were spared this time, although there's a lot of hype about it. But anyway, there was enough for the kids to play in and, do a little bit of sledding and what have you. And the roads are starting to get bad here. But anyway, I want to get into this scam situation. We know that these scam situations are just getting worse and worse all the time. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what emails to answer. You don't know when to answer your phone. You don't know what text to answer. It's just something, it seems like, all the time. And it's very scary, because technology, there's just, people are coming up with all kinds of ways to scam people. And, especially people, in my age group, that we are just more vulnerable, it seems like, because whenever someone calls you and asks you for information, because it could be about our health or something like that. And so we're like, oh, okay, I'll talk to you. But we've got to be so, so careful about these situations because they can really cause us a lot of problems and pretty much wipe us out financially. So you've got to be super, super, super careful. And I feel like that myself, that I am very red flag alerted. I've worked in social services for many years, and a lot of scammers, unfortunately, people that are coming applying for services, and sometimes. And so anyway, I feel like that my senses are probably a little bit, more than average as far as being alerted to those types of things. My hair just looks terrible. I'm sorry, guys. But anyway, I was sitting just at my computer one afternoon. It's been, I don't know, probably now 3 or 4 months ago. And I don't know if it's been 4, it might be 4 months ago, because it was back when it was really warm weather. But anyway, I look at my phone, and it's my bank, and I bank with a local community bank. And so immediately I looked at it, and it had the name of my bank there. And I'm like, okay. So I just answered it, and they, the person on the other end, called me by my surname, Mrs. And she said, "Are you in Washington State?" And I said, well, she introduced herself, such and such, from such and such bank. And she said, "Are you in Washington State right now?" And I go, "No, why would you call and ask me that?" She goes, "Well, this is the fraud department." And I said, "No." I said, "My bank has a fraud department, but it's not housed in my bank. It's like a subcontractor or whatever that they do, because I have been contacted by them before." And she's going, "No, no, no. This is different. We have," and she says, "We are housed now inside the bank." And she goes, I says, "How do I know that this isn't a scam?" She goes, "Well, look at your debit card." And she says, "Ma'am, I'm just trying to help you." And she says, "We need to get this, taken care of." And she said that someone was in Washington State at a Walmart, was trying to buy $400 worth of items. And I'm like, and I still had red flags up, and I'm like, no, that wasn't me. But my, alert was still up. And I still wasn't totally convinced that she was on the up and up. And I told her, I says, I've been with this bank for many years, and they keep us informed on changes and so on and so forth. And I said, they haven't contacted me, sent me any emails about the changes. And she goes, "Oh, well, I see here on your account that you're not signed up for email alerts." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And she goes, "Well, it's not showing on our end." And anyway, we talked, and she knew exactly what she was doing. She was gaining my trust. We carried on about a 30-minute conversation. And anyway, she said, we're going to, and I says, and I was still telling her, I don't think that this is on the up and up. Or I said, I still feel uncomfortable about talking to you because I interact with my bank often and I've never had this interaction before. But this number was from my bank. And she just kept reassuring me, that they had made some changes, if their fraud department was now housed in the bank, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we talked, and she was gaining my confidence or gaining my trust. And then she used bank terminology. She had some of my information, and it was correct. And whenever she would ask me, is this the last 4 digits of your social security number? And in the beginning, I wouldn't verify. And then as we talked and I began to gain trust in her, I did verify it was. And then my email address, wanting me to verify it, and it was incorrect. By this time, she had gained my trust, and it was just off just a little bit. And I think that was just her talking to me and trying to gain my trust. This lady must have worked in a bank at some point because she had all of the language, all of the terminology down pat, and she was very reassuring, and that she had my best interest at heart. And I think I'm a pretty sharp cookie, that she really, really did gain my trust and really pulled me in, and my senses started going down, and I started feeling more comfortable with her. So she was telling me, she goes, well, whether you believe me or not, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have to, what they call, with the terminology, kill your debit card. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And she goes, but I'm going to get one mailed out to you right away, and we will FedEx it, and you will have it by 7:00 tomorrow night. I'm like, okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, they've never FedExed me my card because, like I said, I deal with the community bank. And so anyway, I just kind of pushed it aside. Well, they're going through changes and the bank is growing, so it kind of made sense and it kind of didn't make sense. But anyway, we kept talking, and I was getting more comfortable with her. She was getting more comfortable with me. And she said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign you up for text alerts. And which I didn't have text alert on. I just have email alerts because I, have my email on my cell phone. I didn't see it, a reason why to have email and text alerts. And she goes, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign you up for text alerts, just to give you the extra blanket of security and blah, blah, blah. She was just really good about pulling me in and easing my mind. And I was still feeling uncomfortable, but I was thinking, well, it's making a little bit of sense. And so anyway, she said, okay, I'm going to sign you up for these text messages. And she goes, okay, I just sent you a test text message. You should get it just any second. And I kept looking at my phone, it didn't come through. And she goes, okay, let me try that again. And so I could hear her typing and all this. And she goes, okay, you should get it this time. And so I was like, okay. And then it didn't come through again. And she goes, okay, I'm going to have to go to my supervisor and see what's going on here. So she puts me on hold, and she's gone like 2 or 3 minutes, just like, a normal bank call would be. And then she comes back, she goes, my supervisor said that it could take up to 15 minutes for this text message to get through. But, we've already got your new debit card on its way, and you should have it by tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So by this time I was all in, I was like, okay. And I was like, she's from my bank. And I think the reason that she talked to me for so long is to pull me in and to gain my trust and for me to let my guard down. And it worked. It worked on somebody like me, which I feel like I'm overly suspicious of people at times, which you have to be. But anyway, so we go on through all this stuff. And so then she goes, okay, you got any questions? Well, she was even telling me the phone number of the people that was trying to use my debit card, and that they had tried to use it over the weekend. They tried to change my email password, where they was trying to get into my email or my bank account, blah, blah, blah. And so I don't know what else she's trying to pull off there. But she had my social security number, my date of birth, my address, my name. And so I wasn't really feeling that uncomfortable whenever we ended the conversation. And so she says, you should get that email or that text in the next, 15 minutes. And it will alert you with any suspicious activity that goes on with your account. And I'm like, okay. So I hang up, and I waited like 30 minutes and I didn't receive it. So I called my bank. What I done, I got my phone and I went to my recent calls and I just pushed the number. It was my bank. And I called my bank and I said, this is, I gave him my name and I said, I haven't got my text message. And she goes, what are you talking about? And I says, well, your fraud department just called me and told me that my card had been compromised and that they were killing my card, and that they were, sending me a new card, and that I would be getting a text message that would alert me with any suspicious activity going on with my account. She goes, no, honey, we don't do that here. You know that. You've banked here long enough. She goes, but we were just getting ready to call you. And I just go, womp. And she said, I was even arguing with her for a minute or two. Oh, no. She said that now that your fraud department's in the bank, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, that's not the way this works. She goes, you know better, and I says, well, y'all gone under, went through changes and stuff. She goes, no, honey. She says, but we were getting ready to call you because your card's been compromised. And she said that she was just getting ready to call me because they could see that someone 3 states away in Florida, Tennessee, somebody in Florida was trying to use my debit card. And they would have got by with it. It would have been successful. But they seen where I had been to a restaurant at 12:30, a local restaurant that I go to quite often, and had made a purchase. And then they were trying to get some money out of an ATM in Florida at 2:00. They knew I could not have made that trip to Florida. That was what threw up the red flag. They declined the transaction in Florida, and they were getting ready to call me when I called them. That's how quick they worked. As soon as she hung up from me and she had verified all that information, she was out trying to use my card. And so the bank goes, no, you know that we don't ever FedEx your cards. We have them here. And then I remembered, yes, you do. And so they asked me if I could come on over to the bank. So I go over to the bank. And so they called their fraud. He's not really a part of the fraud department that contacts you, but he's kind of like their security person there that monitors fraud or something. Anyway, he was really disturbed because they called me from the bank number. He could see it. And so they got into my account to see if there'd been any other types of transactions that had tried to take place, and there wasn't. And they went ahead and they killed my card and issued me a card on the spot, which they had always done. And this security guy, he was even concerned enough that he wanted to freeze my account. And I'm like, well, y'all know about it now, let's don't, do an overkill here. but I know that they had my best interest at heart. And he goes, well, you're probably right. He goes, because now we've got you on high alert. Now every single transaction is going to be monitored. And I didn't know it at that time. I know it now, that they hire companies, these banks hire companies, or my bank does, and probably a lot of others, hire companies, and their workers sit at a computer and they monitor debit activity all day long. That's all they do. And they were the ones that called my bank to tell them that the transaction was trying to take place in Florida. And the guy at the bank told me, my bank, he said what they do is that they will go to an ATM and they will test it. They'll try to get $100 out. And if they get that $100 out, then they know that they've got it. They know that they have access to the account. Then they'll go to Walmart and they'll buy up thousands of dollars in gift cards and use your debit card. And then the money's not traceable. There's no way to get it back. Well, of course, your bank. But anyway, we had, do a police report and all that kind of stuff. But this guy at the bank was really, really disturbed how that they could have got, or how that they could have called me, and it looked like the bank was calling me. And that's very disturbing. And, but anyway, I'll just get to the end of the story here because there's a lot to it, but I'm not going to bore you with all the details. But what had happened, because they was trying to find a common denominator, because it was me plus 5 others. There was 6 of us that was compromised in the same day. And so they were trying to find a common denominator. And so this guy, the security guy that works at my bank, he spent a whole weekend just trying to find a common denominator, just taking all 6 accounts and just looking through them to see, what the common denominator was. And they finally found it. And it was a little car wash here in town. And so they wasn't sure, whether that it was an in-house, some kind of scam, somebody worked at the car lot, or whether it was somebody put one of those skimmers or whatever it is that they put on the debit card machine at the car wash. But anyway, what finally happened was it was a few days later, and the guy from the bank called, and so he introduced himself, and I go, I know this is you because I just talked to you, but I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call back. I'm going to call the bank back and ask for you. And he goes, I understand totally, not a problem. And he said, anybody has a problem with that, don't talk to him. And so that's what I done. And he said, and so they had to get all 6 of their permission, everyone that was compromised with this car wash deal. They had to get their permission to go in and to do an internal investigation to make sure it wasn't like an inside job. And so the sheriff's department had to get involved in everything. And it turned out that it was not an inside job, but it was one of those, whatever that it was, that they put on those machines. And that's how that they had compromised all of our cards. But the moral of this story is, even if the call comes from a number that you know, don't let your don't let your guard down. Keep those red flags up. Don't let them, this person was so convincing that I was just, so scared, because at this point, she had my name, she had my social security number, she had my address, she had my date of birth. So I'm thinking, she can go and open up all kinds of line of credit. She can, go to the social security office and have my checks, I guess routed to her. I don't know. And so they suggested that I call the social security office and to put a freeze on my social security account where I can't call to do any type of transactions or requests or anything over the phone. Anything I have to do with my social security, I have to go to my local office, which is fine. And also, I contacted all 3 credit reporting agencies and requested a freeze be put on my credit, because they could be out just, they could steal my whole identity. And so we put a freeze on my credit. Although the guy at the bank said that's typically not what they're after. Said because they're not after anything that they can be traced by or maybe get caught, that they're after the money to buy the gift cards, most likely. But there is always that, you know, chance that they could be trying to steal your identity. So anyway, the moral of this story is be careful. Even if that number looks familiar, be careful. And if you have a red flag going up, just tell them, I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call you right back. And if it's legit, they're not going to have a problem. And I just hope that this helps someone, because it sure caused me a lot of heartache, a lot of worry. I mean, I was just sick to my stomach, you know, because they could have just walked me out. But thank God that, you know, we got it taken care of quickly and stopped them. But that's not always the case. So keep your guard up. Thanks for watching. See you next video. God bless.